Hi, good evening. This is Charlie Turnbull. This is Tuesday Night is Cheese Night in conversation with the wonderful Mike Smales, who I have to say, it's his farm, his cheesemaking facility. You will see on the Academy of Cheese Level 1, the fantastic video that really demos how good cheese is made and allows people to get a handle on. So if you want to learn about cheese, you'll be seeing Mike's Dairy. Nice to meet you tonight, Mike.
Good evening.
Well, we've got 3 cheeses in front of us. But first of all, let's talk about you. Where are you? Where's your farm? It's your own herd.
It is indeed. So I'll give you a little bit of an overview because we're not just cheese. So we farm about 500 acres on the northern edge of the New Forest, bit spread out. Large chunk is tenanted and there's a chunk that we own. So it's not entirely straightforward. We run about 170 cows. And they are Holstein Friesians, albeit over the years we've tended to breed for fat and protein. So they're not an ordinary Holstein Friesian. They're not the sort of Holsteins that produce 10 or 11,000 litres a year. They're 8,000 litres, but we'd get a better fat and protein result from it. And then we grow about 100 acres of organic vegetables, albeit the cows are not organic, but the vegetables are. And we grow a summer season, which is mainly beans, courgettes, sweet corn, and then about 30, 40, 50 acres of Halloween pumpkin, which finishes the season off and takes us through to October the 31st. So we're a bit of a mixed bag. And over the years, I've sort of really moved from being a muddy boots farmer to a sort of van driving cheese salesman, really.
Do you see those going up in the world or down in the world?
Oh, definitely going up in the world, yeah.
There's a better class of person amongst the cheese making farmers. So 500 acres is a large amount. You've got a real, as I say, a mixed bag across the piece. And am I right in thinking that sort of cheese making is the last thing you've come to? You've been a farmer a lot longer than you've been a cheesemaker.
We've been farming since 1952, when Father bought his first little farm, about 70 acres, 10 miles further north. And we came to this farm in 1969. So we've been here 50 years. We've got quite a nice bit of medium sandy loam, which is quite good vegetable growing ground. And so we've been growing vegetables about 40 years. And then 22 years ago, Waitrose came to us and wanted us to go organic with the vegetables because we were doing quite a lot of Waitrose business. So we moved to organic vegetables, and at the same time we dipped our toe in the milk to see what we could do cheese-wise. And since then we've just slowly gathered pace, and we've grown organically with a small O rather than a big O.
So you started off with a Gouda. A Gouda is widely seen, if you don't mind me saying, as one of the easier cheeses to make, but not necessarily easy to make well.
Well, we started off with the agenda of not making the cheddar because the world makes a cheddar, and there in the West Country there's some extremely good cheddar makers, and it would have been hard work to catch up with them and compete with them. And then, as we know, there's some pretty average cheddar out there, and you can't compete with price. So we wrote cheddar off right from the word go. We fiddled around. We didn't have a cheese room or somewhere to make the cheese to start with. So I bought a second-hand porter cabin, turned it into a mini cheese plant, and we just fiddled around for the first year to see what we could do. And we settled really on the Gouda style cheese, albeit it's not necessarily the same way as the Dutch would make it. So over a period of time, we've developed our own way of doing things, as you do, and probably most cheese makers are the same. If it works, get on and use it and improve it. If it doesn't work, we'll go off in a different direction.
Yeah. So you started off making Lyburn, which is a Gouda, which we've got an example of tonight, although I've got really weird green screen thing. This is the invisible cheese.
Yeah, no, put
closer
to the screen. That's
There
better.
we go.
Well, that's too close, probably too close. Back a bit.
Maybe.
Okay.
Back a
So,
bit.
so
Back a
what
bit.
you've got there, that's perfect. So that's the 3 month smoked you've got in your hand, but we
Mhm.
also make it as the Lyburn Gold. So that is quite a light young cheese, still got quite a bit of spring in it and flex in it. It's always got a few small, they're holes, but we call them eyes. And our cheeses will always have some eyes. And yep, there you are. There's the flex. And so that's where we start off. And then we'll sell it at 3 months for those who want a lighter cheese and it melts nicely. Then we'll take it on to Winchester, which is about 9 months old. And Winchester is, if you like, getting more cheddary. It's clearly that's Old Winchester you see there. So Old Winchester we then take right through to 18 months, and now that is really quite hard and getting a little more reminiscent of an old Amsterdam or something like that. So
Yeah,
you can
it's
buy it. You can buy it at the 3 ages, and every age suits somebody different, because at the end of the day, everybody actually likes something different, and so you're trying to satisfy this customer base. I still do quite a lot of farmers markets, and so over the last 20 years spoken to thousands and thousands of people, which does give you the benefit of understanding what the customer base likes and enjoys, and
mhm.
everybody likes something different. That's why you've
Yeah.
got whatever it is, 600 or 700 different cheeses in the UK, and everybody's out there selling them because everybody likes something different.
Well, they say there's double that now, 1,200 or something. It depends how you count, but there's a lot of different cheese out there.
It does, and the consumer benefits from the fact that they've got a good choice of English cheeses now.
Hmm. And in producing this, you've been in the multiples. Some of your cheeses are still in Waitrose.
So we've only really been in Waitrose with Old Winchester, and currently we're in Waitrose with Stoney Cross at the moment on the cutting
Mhm.
counter. Locally, we do a lot of local co-ops in Hampshire and just the perimeter of the border. We're in about 20 or 30 or 40 co-ops, but that is very much on a local basis and not the national co-op.
Mm.
That's just, we have something called the Southern Co-op in central southern England, and we supply the southern co-op. But we've got a very wide customer base, because I did set out to make sure. I've had experience of selling vegetables to supermarkets, going back quite a long time,
Hmm.
and I have a policy of nobody has more than 10% of our market. Nobody has more than 10% market share, and so that does give us sort of about 350 customers, which is great, because a bit like customers, your customer base or your wholesale customer base are all wanting something different every day, every week, and it balances out production
Mm.
quite nicely. And so we will supply village shops from £20 a week up to bigger customers who will spend £1,000 a week, and but it does give us quite a nice balance of customers, and it's seen us quite well during the course of this last 12 months. The fact that we've got a wide range of customers has
Mm.
been of a benefit to us.
I can imagine. And are you doing online sales as well to sort of finish off the package?
Yes, we'd never done online sales until last April, but April
Everything
was a big,
changed.
yeah, everything changed, and it was a big turning point for everybody. So we got the web presence, and my webman said to me, "Yep, that's easy, mate. We'll have that sorted out in the next 3 or 4 days." And within 3 or 4 days, we were online, and that's made a nice little contribution. And it's interesting to see where the customers come from. Literally all over every point of the UK, from Cornwall to north of Scotland to Kent and London. So I thought perhaps it might be just quite local, but we do go literally all over the UK.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I have to say, it's a lesson to everybody to follow your lead in that diversification thing. We all know producers, not so much cheese producers, but other small producers who've come a cropper by having too many eggs in one basket.
Yes, but yeah, probably the benefit of vegetable experience. So the older you get, the more you learn, and you learn by your mistakes. And so yeah, we're quite lucky that we probably got it about right at the moment. But who knows what the next corner will turn, and you have to be ready and prepared.
We've all stopped guessing. We've all stopped guessing. Yeah. A lot of people are just going, let's just survive, and then we'll move on to the Right, now let's get to the taste of the cheese. So where do you want to start? You've got 3 very different cheeses. The temptation is to start with, actually, strangely, I think, the smoked Lyburn, because that strikes me as being the youngest, most gentle of your 3 flavors here.
It is, and the smoked Lyburn, and I've got a chunk here that I need to unwrap, is quite a light, delicate. We describe it as a lightly oak smoke, and as I unwrap it, I can definitely smell that's been smoked. It's smoked down at Dorset Smokery. The rind, if you could show people the rind, or perhaps I could show people the rind. Yes, look. Yeah. So it is. Let's try and get that right. Okay. So it's quite a dark caramel color, and people think that we paint the color on there, and the answer is no. There's no color been painted on there. That's the color. They come back from the smokery quite light, and over the next sort of ensuing 6 weeks, they'll go really quite dark, and it's a glorious color.
It's a lovely color.
And then so it's just it is a light smoke, because we smoke them as whole cheeses, obviously.
Well, yes. I mean, we always say when we're teaching this that the smoke only penetrates cheese to an extent. You can't smoke big cheese and expect the flavor to have traveled all the way to the center. But also, you very much made the smoke subsidiary to the flavor of the cheese, which I think is a common mistake some people make, is they put the smoke at the front. You've got to let the smoke augment the cheese, not substitute for the cheese.
Absolutely, and you know, again, talking to the customer base at Farmers Market, there are some people will say, "Well, I much stronger smoke," and my view is, you know, if you're not careful, it's like chewing on old railway sleepers. You know, at the end of the day, it can go over the top, and this is where we settled. This is what we're known for, and if it ain't broke, don't mend it.
Yeah. We've got a question here from Alison, so let's pop that up. What produces the smoke? What are you smoking over?
So it's wood. So it's not wood. Oak wood. Oak. Yeah. So we've always used oak.
Do you think you can taste that it's oak? I mean, some woods are very obvious, you know.
Yeah. The answer is I don't think I'd be able to differentiate between oak or beech or cherry. That said, ironically, we just have tried a few with cherry in the next batch to come through. There's 4 there that we've done with cherry, just to dip our toe in the water. But this suits what we do, and I've got no real intention of moving away from it.
No, I like that. I like that very much. I'm very much not a fan of smoked products because the excessive smoke can bring, you know, negative rubber or oil flavors or rancidity, and you've not got that here. It's very much a sweet, gentle smoke, which is delicious.
So, and we would sell them at 2-3 months. In general, we've never tried to take it on to 6 or 9 months. They sell well as they are at the moment, and so again, just let sleeping dogs lie, really.
Yeah, well, you've got a spread of ranges, so you're selling some young, some middle, some old, which gives you flexibility and robustness in your business model. But let's stay on the cheese. Take us up to our Old Winchester.
So Old Winchester then, has evolved over the last 20 years. It's evolved. So we started off with the gold at 3 months. Then the customer base at farmers markets was saying, well, we need something a bit stronger and we like our cheddar, and can you do something else? So we just experimented by ripening cheese on to 9 months and selling it at 9 months. And then Anne-Marie from the Fine Cheese Company, God bless her, she said to me one day, she said, you know, Mike, you need to take that on longer. And she said, I think that would make a cracking hard cheese. And so we, over a period of a year or two, we fiddled around with it. We didn't get it right to start with, but over probably the best part of 2 years, we experimented to the point where, you know, the cheese we're actually selling now is probably a reflection. One's always trying to fine tune it, and you should never say never, but we're pretty much where we got to sort of probably 15 or 10 years ago. And then the last 10 years, we really haven't changed it very much, albeit the age comes and goes. So selling an 18-month cheese is not as straightforward as you might think, because you just put it on a shelf and forget about it. The answer is, just at the moment, the market is pretty slack and it's fairly weak. And so you need to make sure you've got the ability to store it for an extra 2 or 3 months. And certainly in the next 6 months, as we come forward, we are going to have an overhang of Old Winchester, but it is quite happy, just maturing on a little bit, and it's going to come out a little bit older.
So can I ask you, you said when Anne-Marie suggested you take it on, what were you paying attention to give it that extra length? What did you need to do to give it that extra 2 or 3 months in the recipe or the maturing process?
Well, to be fair, it's a job to remember what we did do, but I think
well, it's 10, 15 years ago, so you know.
Yeah, and so certainly you need to change the dry matter of it. So the dry matter of a gold would be probably about 10%. A Winchester would be 13 or 14%. An Old Winchester would be probably over 20%. So you need to allow it to dry without it drying too much. So you don't want it to go too dry and too hard too quickly. Otherwise, they do become very, very hard. And then when they do get very hard, you've got the 18 months there, but we do a 2 year, and you know, they are hard to cut. They are hard. You throw one of those at a window and it doesn't bounce off the window.
I'm sure you could probably throw it at a wall and it doesn't bounce off the wall. But you've got this. I'm going to have to work on my camera. This turning this. We can't get it close up. You can focus. So it breaks open almost to an almost like a parmesan-y kind of structure where you can sort of the grains of the curd. I'm going to break that to see if we can get that a bit better. Come on, you can focus. And you get those little shiny bits where you begin to see the crystals forming, and get the some edges where it's almost like it's got a glisten to it, like it's either going to become crystalline or maybe even there's a sort of a gentle cheese oil or an oil on it, which really begins to show its age in a lovely way.
Yeah. So when you eat the cheese, certainly at 3 months to 9 months, the crystals aren't there. But leave the cheese to probably 15, 16, 17, 18, and certainly up to 2 years, the crystals become more pronounced. Now, the crystals, for some people don't like them, and they're worried about them and they don't understand them. Whereas there's a lot of people that will buy Old Winchester because they just love the crystals. And
those are the people I know well. Yes, people really like the crystals. They often think there's a flavor to them, but actually I think the senior pleasure is in the texture, that little sort of crunch that you get.
It is. It's all about, because cheese isn't, as you know, cheese isn't just about flavor. It's about texture and as well. So everybody comes from a different angle, but there are certainly people who don't like the scrunch, so they need to come back to something younger. I mean, if you go back quite a long time, I mean, the view was that that the crystals was a fault in the cheese
Yeah,
making,
yeah,
and
no, that's true.
they took the view that the crystals shouldn't be there. Then there's another group of people who think the crystals are in fact salt crystals, and they're not salt crystals. So
No.
it's calcium lactate, and as the cheese dehydrates and dries, the crystals become more pronounced. You don't
Mm-hmm.
want them to get too far pronounced, because they can be, if they get too big, they can be a little harsh on the teeth. But not at 18 months. But if
No,
you've left that cheese 3 years, you know you'd have a big scrunch rather than a little scrunch.
big shot. So how old have you ever taken it?
Oh well, we've got a few on the shelf that are 10 years old, but we've
Wow.
never tried to cut them. But no,
Are you
we've got
saving them
cheese
for
there that's
something?
about 2 years old, 2.5 years old. But we've got a few customers who just like them for that are really, and it's really hard, and that cheese is used by quite a few kitchens, restaurants that will actually like the idea they can use an English hard cheese and grate with it and cook with it, and
Mm-hmm.
so it doesn't just get used on the cheese board, it gets used in the kitchen as well.
So when I'm
People
tasting this, when I'm tasting
go
the
on.
Winchester, it comes. I don't want to like oversimplify it, but it's like a buttery parmesan, isn't it? It's got that kind of the acidity and the fruit of the parmesan, but it's got kind of what I think of as a British buttery base.
It people look at it, and I talk to people and they try it and they say, oh, that's just like a parmesan, and the answer is technically it's not made
Mhm.
anything like the same way as you'd make a parmesan. Technically it's closer to the way you would make a gouda, although we don't make it the same way as the Dutch would make a gouda. So we would certainly make it differently. And you could argue the way it's made is closer to a gouda, but has a bit of cheddar technique in there, but
Mhm.
certainly hasn't got parmesan technique.
Mhm. So how would you describe its flavor? What when you want to express what it tastes like, what are its dominant characteristics that make it what it is?
Do you know, it's hard to nail it. When you offer it to the customer base at farmers market, they will come out with fruit, they'll come out with nuts, they'll come out with smoke as well. And I don't get the smoke, but people will say, has this been smoked? And the answer is no, it hasn't been smoked. So there's obviously a little bit of a smoky back flavor there as well, but it's clearly not been anywhere near a smokery. So yeah, it's a good old mixture, and but at the end of the day, when we set out to make cheese 20 years ago, I took the view that we didn't need to make something different, because that's the way you survive in a tight marketplace, having something that's different to the rest. We didn't know exactly what we wanted to do at the time,
Mhm.
but again, in life you just follow your nose and go where it takes you.
Well, on that note, let's follow our nose to the last cheese of our three. Quite a different beast to look at. Clearly a natural rind we've got here. This is your Stony Cross. What brought this into being?
So probably 10 years ago now, we were producing quite a lot of Old Winchester, but inevitably, as is the case with the wine industry, if you like, when you make something or produce something that you then have to store for 18 months or even 2 years, be it a cheese or a wine or a champagne, it does tie up a lot of capital. You've got a lot of money involved in the stock. So I took the view that we needed something that would turn our cash over a little bit quicker. And again, we just fiddled around. Paul Thomas was with me at the time, and we fiddled around with different things, and out of it evolved Stony Cross. about this. What you've got there, we're a bit tight on stock at the moment. So what you've got there is probably only about 6 weeks old. But normally we'd sell it at about eight weeks old. The rind is just an ordinary grey rind. It's mucor is the mold. People say, can we eat it? And the answer is, yep, you can eat it. It's perfectly safe to eat. But the chunk you've got there at the moment, the chunk I've got here is actually really quite furry, and you can eat it when it's younger, and you can eat it when it's older. But just at the moment, that's a little bit furry. The eyes tend to be a little bit bigger in this cheese, although fundamentally the make is not a lot different. And so they're made in a Caerphilly mold, so it's not the same shape. It's I've got one here. This is in true Maryberry style. This is one I made earlier, and get it on the camera. So that is about.
Let me give you the whole camera. Hang on a second. Let's just get rid of me. Right. So let's have a look at you.
Right. So there we are. That's a Stoney cross, and that'll be weighing in the region of 2.5 to 3 kilograms.
I mean, it clearly could be easily confused at a first glance to a Gorwith or something like that. It's got that shape. It's got a similar rind, if not the same.
Yes, well, it probably is the same rind, yeah.
And so, but I'm fascinated because to look at it, it is completely different in character to your Gouda style, more traditionally Gouda style cheeses. But you're telling me it's a washed curd cheese, which means we're taking some of the whey out and putting some fresh water in.
Yeah, we are. Again, you know, this is a product of just following our nose in life and settling where the customer base will say, we enjoy that. Now, there are people that you'll talk to again at a farmer's market who say, well, I like a strong cheese. They'll actually taste that though. And despite the fact that they're looking for a strong cheese, they'll actually buy that because they enjoy the flavor. And it's got a nice buttery texture to it as well.
It's not an strong cheese. It's got an aromatic fruitiness, almost like a pear droppiness to it in a kind of way. I'm quite surprised. So when you're aiming for this, your target was to bring in a 1 to 2 month a cheese to balance out your crop kind of thing.
Yeah, to balance out the cash flow, really.
And are any of these cheeses seasonal in that sense? Do you sell more of them at one time a year, or they're better produced or taste better at different times a year?
No, I think you get, as the cows go out to grass, you tend to get a bit more colour in the cheese. At Christmas time, we produce that 2.5, 3 kilo cheese as a 1 kilo, and sell a 1 kilo truckle for Christmas, and that's very popular because at a 1 kilo, it's actually probably 0.8 to 1 kilo. It's a nice size, and it makes a nice present without being too big or even too small.
Well, people buy that. They buy cheese for the week, don't they? At Christmas, they buy it for the Christmas take through New Year.
Yeah.
So what have you got in store? Are you looking to develop any more cheeses, or are you happy where you are?
No, we're pretty happy where we are. We make the base for James's cheeses with Little Colonel and Francis. So that gives us another little angle with a washed rind cheese, and effectively that gives us another string to our bow. I guess we're quietish at the moment. We're a bit 70%ish at the moment, but when hospitality gets back, and let's hope they get back fairly soon, we should be back up to full capacity. And at the end of the day, if you're going to make something different or try to make something different, you need to focus on where you're going to sell it and how you're going to sell it. And at the end of the day, if all of a sudden you're displacing something that is already selling, my cheese plant, what's the point? And we put the cheese plant up 20 years ago, thinking, oh, we got plenty of space to grow into, but the cheese vat is 3,000 litres, and effectively, that little cheese plant is running at full capacity, which is full capacity is 70 or 80 tons a year.
Well, that's a good score. And that, that is, I don't know, for an artisan cheese producer, I suppose big production is sort of 140, 150 tons a year. So you're creeping up the scales.
Yes, you are. I think once you get over 100 tons a year and creeping towards the 200 tons a year, you then probably do need to start talking to the multiples. Do I really want to go there? I mean, I don't regard Waitrose and the Co-op as a multiple, but some of those bigger players, I'm not sure that at my age, I'm not sure that I really want to go there.
And you're obviously, a very young man. Have you got a succession plan? Are you thinking of retiring anytime soon? Or you're still clearly doing the farmers markets? And
well, we've got 3 boys, and the eldest boy, Jono, now has taken over the running of the farm, because the vegetable business in its own right is quite a big business to run. But Jono also runs the cows. So we've just put in the old milking parlour was 50 years old, and we have invested in a new milking parlour this year. And should we have gone robots? A lot of people are going robots. We took 2 years to decide whether we should install robot milkers, and we've decided not to. We've stuck with a 2020 herringbone, which is bigger than we used to have. But we have got some of the benefits of some of the robotic technology within the new herringbone parlour, and that is all working really well. And our cell counts are well down, and our TBCs, our back to scans, are fantastic. So, but the old one was 50 years old. It was completely shook. So we did need to do something about it.
So you're keeping pace in a gentle and a diversified and a low risk way. And even though you've come to it only 20 years ago, you're obviously one of the senior cheesemakers and most respected cheesemakers in the country now. So it's a life well lived here, Mike.
Well, that's nice of you to say so. I just regard myself as a little old muddy boots farmer who's plodded along for the last 50 years, if you like, and having the diversity of the cheese and the vegetables and the cows and 1 or 2 other bits and pieces gives us a very balanced business, and I see no real need to change that balance at the moment. And well, you'll be pleased to hear I've had my jab, and so I'm not doing markets to the moment, but in the next few weeks we should be back to market, so that'll be good. Get back out there, so that there's always something to sell. If I'm not selling cheese, I'm selling sweet corn or courgettes or something.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's been great to talk to you. It's been a real pleasure to talk to someone who's traveled, in parallel with our whole cheese renaissance, which has happened as you've developed cheeses that, like so many people, have found a recipe and then bonded it to your farm, your terroir, your herd, and create something that is uniquely you. And you clearly are a deeply competent businessman as well. So congratulations.
Thank you, Charlie. And thank you for having me on this evening.
It's been a pleasure. Nice to talk to you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.